The 1960s weren't just about muscle cars roaring down Main Street. Behind the scenes, the truck world was quietly rewriting the rulebook with designs so clever most people didn't even notice. But here's the twist. Many of these marvels sold terribly, got overlooked, or were so rare you'll never see one at a car show. Which forgotten trucks hid genius under steel and grease? Stick around, because the answers are stranger than you think. Toyota Stout. 1964 to 1967. This wasn't just Toyota's first real shot at the American pickup market. It was the truck that proved Japanese engineering could embarrass American giants, if only anyone had bought it. When the Toyota Stout rolled into dealerships in 1964, only 4 people bought one that first year. 4, not 4,000. 4 trucks. But while sales were a disaster, the engineering was nothing short of visionary. Under the hood sat a 1.9-liter inline-4 producing a modest 85 horsepower. Not impressive on paper, but Toyota had tuned it for near-indestructible reliability. Owners found these engines would run endlessly with minimal care. Decades before long-lasting became a selling point. The cab design was also ahead of its time. With a curved wraparound windshield, the Stout eliminated vent windows years before Detroit would follow. And while American trucks were still bouncing around on solid axles, the Stout had independent front suspension with coil springs, giving it a surprisingly smooth ride. The irony? The truck was too good. Its payload exceeded what most buyers needed, and its looks were plain compared to flashy chrome-covered Fords and Chevys. Americans wanted big V8s and style. Toyota offered durability and practicality. Wrong product, wrong decade. But every lesson Toyota learned here went into the Hilux, which became legendary. In short, the Stout failed so the Tacoma could succeed. Overbuilt, undersold, and decades ahead of its time, the Toyota Stout is the perfect example of genius hiding in plain sight. GMC Handy Van Pickup, 1964 to 1967. Imagine slicing the back off a van with a saw and calling it a pickup. That's exactly what GMC did with the Handy Van Pickup. And while it looked like a rushed science project, the engineering made it weirdly brilliant. GMC launched it in 1964, riding the wave of forward control vans like Ford's Econoline. Their idea? Cut costs, maximize space, and give small businesses a cheap workhorse. The Handy Van's genius lay in its simplicity. The engine was tucked between the front seats, freeing up every inch behind the driver for cargo. The bed was completely flat, something most compact trucks of the day couldn't manage. It could swallow gear like a modern SUV, even though it was shorter than many sedans. Contractors and delivery companies loved that efficiency. And here's the twist. Its terrible handling actually made it safer. With so much weight up front and a feather-light rear, the Handy Van drove like a shopping cart with a broken wheel. You couldn't take corners fast even if you tried. That forced drivers to slow down, making it one of the most unintentionally safe trucks of the era. It was crude, cheap, and sometimes scary, but it got the job done. The pickup version looked even stranger, like someone performed backyard surgery on a van. Yet it worked. The Handy Van proved that sometimes less engineering is more. When you build something so basic, it's impossible to break. GMC kept spinning out variants of this design for decades, showing that a good idea doesn't always need polish to endure. Mazda Rotary Pickup 60s. This wasn't just a truck. It was Mazda asking, what if a pickup revved like a sports car? In the late 1960s, while the world braced for rising fuel prices, Mazda engineers were busy stuffing rotary engines into just about anything, including a small pickup. It was either inspired madness or pure genius. The prototype that set the stage for the later rotary engine pickup, REPU, featured Mazda's 13B Rotary, a compact power plant that spun to dizzying RPMs. Instead of vibrating like a washing machine full of bricks, it hummed smoothly all the way to redline. At around 110 horsepower, It wasn't mind-blowing, but compared to the sluggish small trucks of the day, it felt alive. Mazda didn't stop there. They lowered the stance, widened the fenders, and even experimented with bucket seats inside, an unheard-of luxury in working trucks. This was no farm vehicle. It was a playful machine disguised with a cargo bed. In a world where compact trucks were slow and stiff, this thing drove more like a sports coupe. The downside? Gas mileage. The Rotary drank fuel with a thirst that made American V8s look reasonable. For an economy truck, that was a fatal flaw. Yet, for a short, shining moment, Mazda proved a pickup could be fast, smooth, and fun. The Rotary pickup remains one of the strangest crossovers between sports car DNA and truck practicality. Ahead of its time? Definitely. Successful? Not even close. But its existence alone shows just how daring 1960s engineering could be. International Harvester Travelette, 1961 to 1975. Before crew cabs became driveway kings of suburbia, someone had to build the first. That someone was International Harvester, and in 1961 they introduced the Travelette, the first four-door, four-wheel drive production pickup in America. And it wasn't just about adding doors. It was a radical rethink of what a truck could be. To solve the challenge of stretching the cab, International designed a brand new chassis with independent front torsion bar suspension. Think about that. A truck in 1961 with independent suspension, when even most cars were still clinging to solid axles. The ride was lower, smoother, and shockingly car-like for its time. Owners could even adjust torsion bar height to tweak load capacity. The reinforced cab featured a strong B-pillar and extra sound deadening, making conversation in the back seat possible, something unheard of in trucks back then. Under the hood, you had options from sturdy inline sixes to burly V8s. By 1963, International even offered an automatic transmission in a four-wheel drive truck. That combination wouldn't hit Ford or Chevy for another decade. The Travelette was marketed for work crews, oil fields, fire departments, construction outfits. Families weren't the target yet, but in hindsight, International basically invented the modern crew cab lifestyle truck. Unfortunately, their timing was off. They quit building light trucks in 1975, right before demand for family-friendly pickups exploded. Most Travelettes lived hard lives and ended up rusted away or scrapped. But its DNA lives in every crew cab on the road today. International didn't just add doors to a pickup. They created a whole new category, years before anyone realized how valuable it would be. Mercury M Series, 1946 to 1968. Here's a truck so obscure that even some Ford enthusiasts don't know it existed. The Mercury M Series was Canada's secret pickup line, born from a dealership quirk that forced Ford to badge engineer trucks under Mercury. The result? Some of the best-kept automotive secrets of the 1960s. Mechanically, these were Fords in disguise. Engines, frames, transmissions, all identical. But Mercury models often came with extra chrome, fancier trim, and unique badging that set them apart. In rural Canada, farmers could walk into a Mercury dealer and buy a truck without driving 50 miles to the nearest Ford lot. It was a clever solution to a sales problem, but it created some interesting engineering footnotes. For example, Canadian market Mercury trucks sometimes kept engine options a year longer than U.S. Fords, like the Flathead V8 into 1954. They also experimented with axle ratios better suited for long Canadian highways. The naming system was logical too, M100s, M200s and 50s, mirroring Ford's F-Series lineup but with a twist. By the 1960s, the trucks were nearly indistinguishable from their Ford twins except for the badge. But rarity is what makes them fascinating today. Mercury trucks were never sold in the U.S., and production numbers were small even in Canada. Most worked until they fell apart, leaving very few survivors. The M-Series proved badge engineering could be more than a lazy marketing trick. It gave rural buyers access, added flair to familiar hardware, and quietly wrote a chapter in truck history most people don't even know exists. If you spot a Mercury pickup today, you've just seen one of Canada's best automotive secrets on four wheels. Chevrolet Corvair. 95 Rampside, 1961 to 1964. This wasn't just a pickup. It was Chevrolet deciding to bend physics and pray the truck didn't tip over. The Corvair 95 Rampside looked like something dreamt up after too many late nights. Rear engine, cab-over design, and a loading ramp built right into the side of the bed. It was either brilliant or completely unhinged. Underneath sat the same air-cooled flat six from the Corvair car, tweaked for truck duty. At 80 horsepower, it wasn't jaw-dropping, but Chevy engineered it with lower compression, bigger cooling, and tougher valves so it could take abuse. And it worked. These trucks could haul more than their quirky appearance suggested. But the real magic was that side ramp. Swing it down, and you got a 22-degree incline strong enough to roll a 1,000-pound load straight into the bed. Suddenly, heavy equipment or vending machines could be loaded without a hernia. It was a feature decades ahead of its time. Of course, there were compromises. The rear engine raised part of the bed floor, leaving a weird step that annoyed owners. The weight distribution was comical too. With nothing in the back, steering felt like a suggestion, and in panic stops, the rear end could practically lift off the ground. Chevy even added a hidden 165-pound weight just to keep it planted. Still, the Rampside was a stroke of practical genius hiding inside a very odd package. It sold poorly, killed off by 1964. But those who understood it, like phone companies and airports, swore by it. Today, collectors chase them precisely because they were so weird. The Rampside proved that sometimes, being too far ahead of your time guarantees you'll be remembered. Jeep Forward Control. FC 150/170. 1956 to 1965. What if you shrank a semi-truck down to Jeep size? That's basically what Willys did with the Forward Control series. The FC 150 and FC 170 looked like someone drew a truck using only a ruler. Boxy, upright, and comically square. But under the odd looks was some of the smartest engineering of the decade. The big idea was space efficiency. By sliding the cab directly over the engine, Jeep squeezed an impressive pickup bed onto a wheelbase barely longer than a CJ5. An FC 150 weighed about 3,200 pounds, but could carry 3,200 pounds, literally its own weight. No other American truck in the 60s matched that payload ratio. For farmers, airports, and railroads, this was game-changing, but driving one. That was another story. Sitting almost on top of the front axle, your knees were essentially the crumple zone. The view was commanding. You could see down into convertibles, but comfort was non-existent. Vacuum-powered wipers slowed down when you hit the gas. The ride was stiff as a wagon, and service meant wrestling with an engine stuffed under a small cover between the seats. Yet the FCS earned a cult following because they could do things conventional pickups couldn't. Railroads converted them to run on tracks. Airports used them for crash response rigs. Farmers loved the power takeoff that could run tools straight from the truck. In short, they were workhorses disguised as boxes. Willys built around 30,000 before pulling the plug in 1965, but the Forward Control was prophetic. Today, nearly every maker sells cab-over trucks for commercial use. Jeep's FC was simply too early and too strange for mainstream America, but its clever engineering influence lingers everywhere. Dodge A 100 pickup. 1964 to 1970. This wasn't just Dodge entering the compact pickup game. It was Dodge deciding, let's build a truck that can do wheelies. The A100, launched in 1964, looked like a typical Forward Control van chopped into a pickup. But under the sheet metal, it carried some wild surprises. The A100's engine sat in a boxy doghouse between the front seats, like its Ford and Chevy rivals. But Dodge one-upped them by offering a V8 option, the 273 cubic inch small block. In a truck barely longer than a modern compact car, that was like strapping a jet engine to a roller skate. Even with the standard slant 6, the A100 was tough, reliable, and easy to maintain. But the real fun was its proportions. The A100 was the widest compact truck you could buy, giving it a roomy cab that could seat 3 adults without feeling like a squeeze. Engineers also gave it torsion bar front suspension, rare in trucks of the era, which made the ride surprisingly smooth. Of course, weight balance was another story. With so much mass up front, the rear end would get light under acceleration, sometimes frighteningly so. Drag racers quickly noticed. One in particular, Bill Maverick Golden, dropped a Hemi into an A100 and created the Little Red Wagon, a wheelie-pulling legend that toured drag strips for years. Suddenly, the A100 wasn't just practical, it was a showstopper. For everyday buyers, the A100 was still useful. A 7-foot bed, low load height, and bulletproof reliability made it popular with small businesses. It never sold in huge numbers, and production ended in 1970. But it left a mark. The A100 showed that compact trucks could be practical, powerful, and a little bit crazy, all at the same time. Ford Econoline Pickup, 1961 to 1967. This wasn't just Ford copying Volkswagen's forward control vans. It was Ford taking one look at the VW Type 2 and saying, "We can make this bigger, tougher, and scarier." The Econoline Pickup, launched in 1961, shoved the driver practically over the front axle, stuffed an engine between the seats, and stretched a 7-foot bed behind. The result? A truck that was equal parts clever and questionable. What made the Econoline stand out was its packaging. Unlike Chevy's Corvair Rampside with its awkward step-up bed, the Econoline offered a completely flat, usable load floor. That alone made it a favorite for delivery companies and utility crews. The load height was just 22 inches, so tossing cargo in was easy, something no conventional pickup could match. The engines came straight out of Ford's Falcon, a 144 or 170 cubic inch inline 6, later upgraded to a 240. Not glamorous, but bulletproof and full of torque. The problem? With all that weight up front and nothing in the rear, the Econoline was notoriously twitchy. In panic stops, the back end could literally lift off. The ground Ford solution was hilarious in its simplicity. They bolted a 165-pound hunk of steel under the bed just to keep the rear tires planted. Engineering by sledgehammer. Still, Ford got one thing exactly right. Visibility. Buyers could choose a deluxe cab with wraparound corner glass that made the driving position feel like piloting a bubble. Airport crews, utility companies, and small businesses loved the maneuverability and space efficiency. By 1967, Ford pulled the plug in favor of more conventional designs. But the Econoline Pickup proved Americans would buy odd-looking trucks if they worked. Today, survivors are rare, often customized beyond recognition. But those who know the story see the Econoline as Ford's weirdest and weirdly brilliant truck experiment of the 1960s. International Scout 80 Pickup, 1960 to 1965. This wasn't just another compact truck. It was the vehicle that accidentally created an entire new market. When International Harvester launched the Scout 80 in 1960, the goal was simple: build a Jeep-sized machine that was actually useful. What they ended up with was a prototype for every SUV and lifestyle pickup you see today. The Scout 80's engineering was deceptively clever. Its frame flexed just enough to keep 4 wheels on the ground over rough terrain, while still being stiff enough to carry serious loads. Under the hood sat the Comanche 4-cylinder, basically half of International's big 304 V8. This wasn't cost-cutting, it was smart parts sharing. The result was a tough little engine that shared components with its bigger sibling, making it easy to repair. But the true genius was in its flexibility. The Scout 80 came with removable doors, a removable roof, even a fold-down windshield. One week, it was a bare-bones work truck. The next, a family hauler. International also offered multiple body styles: pickup, panel delivery, and half-cab versions. Customers could order plows, winches, and even power takeoff units. Sales expectations were modest, about 10,000 a year. Instead, International sold more than 100,000 in the first 5 years. They had no idea they'd just invented the recreational 4x4. Suddenly, people who didn't need rugged trucks wanted one anyway. The Scout showed that trucks could be practical and fun at the same time. International Harvester eventually left the light truck game, but the Scout's DNA is everywhere. From removable door Jeeps to compact SUVs, it all traces back to this unassuming truck. The Scout 80 didn't just fit into the 1960s. It helped shape the future of the American pickup. Datsun 520, 1965 to 1968. This wasn't just another Japanese compact sneaking into America. It was the truck that quietly proved small imports. The Datsun 520, introduced in 1965, was humble on the outside, but surprisingly advanced where it counted. The heart of the 520 was its 1.3-liter J13 inline-4. On paper, 67 horsepower. Looked laughable compared to American V8s. But the little engine was durable, efficient, and easy to service. It could run hard for years without complaint, which quickly won over buyers who cared more about dependability than raw power. In fact, many 524s went to farms, delivery businesses, and construction sites where abuse was the daily routine. The engineering win came in its build quality. Unlike many American trucks that were still built on heavier ladder frames, the Datsun used a lighter design paired with independent front suspension. This made it comfortable for city driving while still able to haul a respectable half-ton payload. It was easy to maneuver, economical on fuel, and compact enough to fit urban streets long before compact pickup was a buzzword. Another overlooked feature was its cab design. The 520 had a wider, more ergonomic cabin compared to earlier Japanese imports. It gave drivers real comfort for long trips, something that helped it gain traction in the US market. By the late 60s, Datsun was moving serious numbers of these trucks, planting seeds for Nissan's dominance in later decades. The Datsun 520 may not have wowed with speed or flash, but it proved small trucks could be rugged, well-built, and practical. In many ways, it was the blueprint for the Japanese imports that would dominate the compact pickup market in the 1970s and 80s. Quietly, the 520 earned its place as one of the best-engineered sleepers of the 1960s. Studebaker Champ, 1960 to 1964. This wasn't just Studebaker's last stand in the truck market. It was a mashup experiment that proved you could innovate even when the budget had dried up. By 1960, Studebaker was struggling to keep pace with Detroit's giants. Their solution? Create a truck using as many car parts as possible, an approach that accidentally gave the world one of the smartest truck beds of the decade. The Champ was built on Studebaker's existing Lark sedan platform, which meant the cab looked suspiciously like a car front end bolted onto a pickup. But here's where the engineering magic happened: the bed. Instead of designing one from scratch, Studebaker licensed Dodge's modern space-side bed. It had clean slab sides, integrated fenders, and a flat load floor years ahead of its time. For once, a truck looked sleek instead of slapped together. Under the hood, buyers could pick from thrifty 6-cylinders to sturdy V8s, including the 259 cubic inch unit that gave surprising grunt for a mid-sized pickup. Independent front suspension gave it smoother manners than most competitors, while the cab itself offered comfort unheard of in work trucks. In many ways, the Champ was trying to bridge the gap between car and truck, long before car-like pickups became a marketing trend. The tragedy was timing. Studebaker was already on shaky ground, and the Champ never sold in big enough numbers to save the brand. By 1964, it was gone. Yet the engineering decisions, like Borrowing a modern bed design and blending sedan comfort with utility set a precedent others would follow. Today, the Champ is remembered not as a failure, but as one of the most forward-thinking pickups of its era. It proved that even a company on its last legs could still out-engineer the big players when it mattered. So there you have it. The 12 best-engineered trucks of the 1960s you probably never knew existed. Some were too weird, some too advanced, and some simply arrived before the world was ready. But every one of them pushed the boundaries of what a truck could be. Which of these oddball machines impressed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. After all, history's strangest trucks always have the best stories.